Anniversary. Yep, we're 20 years strong, still fighting for Kiwi families and the values that we all share, despite attempts by the state to muzzle us through deregistration. At Family First, we believe that strong marriages and families are foundational for a strong nation. For 20 years, we've been one of the leading pro-family and pro-life voices. We've played a key role in major public policy debates, including opposition to the anti-smacking law, the redefinition of marriage, the introduction of radical abortion laws, the flawed conversion therapy law, transgender ideology and radical sex education in schools, and the 2020 cannabis and euthanasia referendums. We've also become one of New Zealand's leading new media commentators. Recently, we measured 40 million plus views of Family First content across our social media platforms in just 12 months. In some stories, we've had more views than the mainstream media. But we want to reach even more people with the truth. Here's how you can help us grow even stronger. Follow, subscribe, and share our social media content. Read our research, analysis, and fact sheets, which clear away the cultural narrative and give you the confidence and assurance to stand up for truth and socially conservative values. Send us any important information and happenings affecting our Kiwi culture that we might need to share and amplify with our wider audience. Make submissions to Parliament and councils on bills which downgrade conservative family values. But most importantly, at this special point in our existence, could I be slightly forward and ask for a birthday present? A 20th anniversary present. Would you consider a special financial gift to recognise our significant milestone? And would you consider investing in our future via regular donations through automatic payments? If you feel we have spoken on your behalf and you have appreciated our common sense and credible approach to the many family and political issues in the media and public domain over the past 20 years, please join the movement. It'll be one of the best investments you could make, and we would be very grateful. Thank you for your consideration of this request. Go to familyfirst.nz/donations to invest. Help us to promote strong families, marriages, religious freedom, and the value of life based on the footprint of faith which has underpinned New Zealand for generations. We want to be a voice for your values. Family First New Zealand simply could not exist without your support and investment. Go to familyfirst.nz/donations. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. It's lovely to have you here on Solid Ground. I see the comments are flowing in already, and I'll get to those in a moment. But Solid Ground is we do the show on a Tuesday and a Thursday morning live, actually from a tree house in Auckland here in New Zealand, where I talk the issues of the day, the political, the cultural, the social, the ethical issues, which catch my eye. And more often than not, you won't see in mainstream media, or the angles, sometimes I have a slightly different perspective on things. But as I say, it's a live show, literally live, because there's a big helicopter going right over right over at the moment. I don't know if you can hear it through the microphone. The joys of living in Auckland. But it's a live show, so if you have comments and thoughts on any issue, feel very free to, well, make a comment. If you've got a question on something I'm discussing, or there's something else happening in New Zealand or around the world that you'd like me to comment on, again, put it into the chat. Importantly, it's the Family First YouTube channel or Family First Facebook page. Those are the two channels which come into me live here. If you're watching this on Substack or on Instagram or on my Facebook page, wonderful to have you. Any comments you put there I'll be able to read later, but if you want those comments to come in live to me, well, go to Family First pages. And again, lovely to have you all here. I see Dennis, good morning. Lovely to have you along. Always, every time I see you, it reminds me I've got to go and your new community that you've got on Facebook and make some comments there. So good morning, Harrison. Lovely to have you along as well. Hopefully you've made your cup of tea. I've got my solid ground coffee already. The bad double entendre there. In fact, I'm trying to order some more cups at the moment, so that's something. Good morning to Lynette. Lovely to have you along. We've got Darren as well. Edmund as well. I see Edmund's made some comment and others are commenting about Trump's latest statements. I will actually make some comment on that. Jackie, good morning to you. To Foo Dogs Trucking, good morning. Philippa, lovely to have you along. Good morning to Samuel. Again, lovely to have you here. Ian, good morning. And we've got, oh gosh, we've got so many. I'm going to have to stop there. I'll be there. Good morning to all of you. And it's I don't know what it's like for you. It's an okay morning here in Auckland, but it's a bit cool. So for the first time in months, I've got a warmer top on. Guys, first thing I will say, actually, because I can see a lot of chatter around Trump's latest statements. I see he attacked the Pope, but more, I think, offensively. He put out a meme or an image yesterday of, he says, of himself as a Red Cross worker. I think most of us looking at it saw it as sort of a messianic or Jesus figure. I've decided not to show it here. I just make two comments. I think it is pretty pathetic, to be honest, as an image, but not something I'm going to get particularly worked up and upset about. I know for a lot of people they have. They think it's blasphemous and so forth, and I think there's good grounds for that. But Trump basically doesn't really upset me, and not because I like everything he does or that I agree with, the way he speaks. He's very inflammatory, but he likes to bait people. Now that shows an element of his moral character or lack of, but I just refuse to get upset by him because I think that achieves his aims and ends. So as he's threatening to wipe out civilizations, blaspheming, doing these AI-generated memes, this one of messianic figure, I think another one he had of a jet plane dropping poop on protesters. I mean, these things are below what one would expect of a president. But it's deliberate, I think. He likes to deflect and basically, distance himself and what he's doing from what he's saying. And so I just don't fall for it. And that's sort of my encouragement to people. You can rightly make a judgment about the man, but at the same time, I wouldn't waste any emotional time getting upset by what Trump does. So yeah, anyway. And Harrison's rightly reminded me of the forum on the family announcement. That's right, we have a new venue and a new set of days. And being me, I haven't actually loaded when that is. I'll see if I can find it. But yeah, we've got our family forum again this year. But as I say, it's not going to be in Manukau, and it's going to be on different days. So let's keep you waiting for that. Hey, turning to New Zealand, I'm actually going to talk not immediately about the cyclone Vaianu. It'd be interesting to know whether you guys thought the way it was handled was appropriate, or was it the boy crying wolf? I've got a few thoughts on that. But the first thing I wanted to run by you is that John Campbell, the reporter, is now heading up Radio New Zealand's morning show, Morning Report. Quite famous, long-standing, is seen as, by many, not all, sort of the premier morning talk show where he and Ingrid Hipkiss now, again, a bit like Solid Ground, but far more professional, of course, are talking and interviewing people. So John Campbell's been put there, not without controversy. And look, I don't know John well, but we know he's a very emotive speaker, and he's self-declared himself very much to the left of politics. Soon after the coalition government was formed, he basically mocked the three leaders. So, aren't you... I'm going to stop myself there, because amazing people like Harrison and Sue have reminded me of when the Forum on the Family is. So it's the 11th to 12th of September. So mark your diaries. Mark those now. That will be in Auckland, the 11th to the 12th of September, the Forum on the Family. I can tell you, as I say, a new venue, new days. As you can see, that's a Friday and Saturday. And we already have an impressive array of speakers. I can't tell you who they are just yet, but it's going to be fantastic in this 20th year. Back to old John Campbell. So as I say, very much to the left of politics, and self-declared. This is not just me making that judgment, but we can see the way he's handled reporting of those on the left versus those on the right. And as I say, he's self-declared himself to be very much to the left. But what was striking is he was on a few days ago, before taking the chair at Morning Report, with another reporter called Jesse Mulligan, who put some questions to him about his bias. And I thought, I'm going to play the video, I thought his reply was exceptionally telling, not only of himself, but one of the reasons media is in trouble in this country, and in fact around the West, because I think the attitude coming through is most unfortunate. So I'll play the video full screen, so you won't have to look at my ugly mug, and then I'll bring it back on with some comment from me.
There's a perception that RNZ lost listeners because it was too woke in the morning, too left-leaning, that it scared people who might have been more centrist or more leaning towards the right off to other stations. And I wonder if you're worried about a perception that you're on the left as well, and the people who left might not come back because they may have a preconception about what you believe and how you might interview.
I'm not worried about that. And I would say to people, the kind of people who are saying that, we need to ask why they're saying it, what their agendas are, who they are. But I know that when I interview somebody, I am faithful to the requirements of journalism, and that is to treat people fairly. Not everyone we talk to has got a degree from Victoria University like I have. We need, we often talk about objectivity, but actually what we're really talking about is representation. And representation is inclusion. So the more voices we have, the more we will reflect a plurality of worldviews. And that's a wonderful thing, I think.
Yeah, well, there's John. There's at least three things wrong there. And we're good on him speaking and talking, but quite striking, I think. So I will see if I can do this properly and be able to pause it as we play it. I'll just give you some comments, which I know you'll have already thought yourselves, but it's just, again, quite striking.
There's a perception that RNZ lost listeners because it was too woke in the morning, too left-leaning, that it scared people who might have been more centrist or more leaning towards the right off to other stations. And I wonder if you're worried about a perception that you're on the left as well, and the people who left might not come back because they may have a preconception about what you believe and how you might interview.
I'm not worried about that. And I would say to people, the kind of people who are saying that, we need to ask why they're saying it, what their agendas are, who they are.
I mean, isn't that quite extraordinary? I mean, I would say objectively, he does come from the left. And I mean, Jesse Mulligan is putting that as a question, but we could easily rephrase it as a statement. Again, and John, if you will, is very open of his bias. And Radio New Zealand already has a perception issue of being, we sometimes mock it, I certainly know in Parliament, as red radio. It is very left-leaning. And I think him being there reinforces that further. But I think the striking thing, guys, is what I would just term as gaslighting. He takes a question of himself and then turns it, in this case, on to potential listeners. People who don't agree with John Campbell, people who don't agree with Radio New Zealand, they have some sort of agenda. There's something going on. It's something wrong with them. How dare they question him, his reporting, the stories they choose to cover. It's almost conspiratorial, isn't it? There's something wrong with the people who don't want to listen to Radio New Zealand. And we're very sadly familiar with this throughout the media, where they blame the audience. And I remember when I was in Parliament, one of the things we were, not so much taught, but was said quite often by smarter members than myself, is that the voters are always right. And so when voters choose to vote in a particular direction, they vote you in, they vote you out, they're right. You can be upset or celebratory, whatever it is, but the voters are always right. And I think in many ways that also can apply to media. The listeners and the viewers are right. If they find your content interesting, challenging, they'll tune in. If they're not, it's not because they're conspiracists or they've got some sort of agenda, as John Campbell's suggesting. It's that they don't like your views. And they don't like the way that you are often censoring other people's views. And I see someone's commenting here that all media has bias. Absolutely. I've obviously got much more of a leaning to the conservative and right side of politics. And, not to make this about myself, but I'm more than happy to sit down with people with a variety of views and discuss. You're not seeing that in mainstream media in New Zealand. And I can tell you that firsthand. I mean, I've just put in another article to a newspaper to be published, and it hasn't. I mean, this is not just a one-off. It just is not happening. So that's the first thing. This is John Campbell gaslighting viewers, which I think is quite extraordinary.
But I know that when I interview somebody, I am faithful to the requirements of journalism, and that is to treat people fairly.
Yeah, well, I think there's two things here. The tenets of journalism have changed. It's no longer actually about being objective and putting both sides in. Journalism has become about effectively a moral crusade. You've heard me say it before. The journalists will take a particular perspective, their perspective, and that's what they pursue. They use their platforms, and John has very much done that. As for treating people fairly, I mean, in some cases he does, but in a lot of other cases he has not. I mean, there's that infamous, I would say, interview with Simon Bridges years ago, amongst others, where people he doesn't like or political perspectives he doesn't like, he just attacks. And so that's a problem. That has not been fair, nor have I been fair to Dennis and others by putting you all off your breakfasts. Then this next extraordinary, I think, again, sort of telling insight, a very left-wing thing to do.
Not everyone we talk to has got a degree from Victoria University like I have. We need, we often...
This is a classic appeal to authority, and you see this a lot. I mean, it happens right across the political spectrum. But it's like, well, I'm a professor, I have a doctorate, I have this, I have that, I'm an expert, therefore you just have to believe me. That's not the way it operates. Just because you have a degree from Victoria University doesn't really mean all that much. I've got 4 degrees from Auckland University. It doesn't actually mean all that much. It's the substance. The whole point of a degree, John, is that you're then able to articulate a position and defend it, and that you're actually able to reason and argue in the best sense of that word with others. But no, this is just an appeal to authority. I am smarter and better than everybody else, is what he's saying here. And again, I find it quite extraordinary.
Talk about objectivity, but actually what we're really talking about is representation. And representation is inclusion. So the more voices we have, the more we will reflect a plurality of worldviews. And that's a wonderful thing, I think.
Yeah. I mean, where does one even start with that? So I'm just trying to get myself sorted. I mean, that's extraordinary to finish there. I know I've spent a bit of time on it, but I think it's symptomatic of the problem we have in our media as a whole. Objectivity is not important to him. Representation is. I mean, that is intersectionality politics right there. Objectivity is one of the key tenets you would think of journalism. But no, not for Radio New Zealand and John Campbell. It's about representation. Of course, I'm not going to be standing by the phone waiting for a phone call. I doubt Bob McCoskrie will be either. I don't think either of us expect a phone call from John Campbell around all the hosts of issues that Family First talks about. And this is the last, I suppose. He's not so much hoist himself on his petard, but he's just blind to his own failings, which he doesn't have a representative array of people coming on. Not in the array of issues that New Zealanders are interested in. I mean, politically, yes, you'll have Chris Hipkins on and Chris Luxon. You'll treat them differently. But you don't get the array of views. I mean, just about every day when Bob and I jump on and review the likes of Radio New Zealand, let's say on the trans issue, or on, let's say, the issue of drugs or euthanasia, they don't have both sides. There's no representation, and there's certainly no objectivity. Anyway, just crazy. And so I'll leave it there. Probably talked too much. Good morning to, is it Z and E? I'm sorry that as some regulars will know, my screen is so small, I do struggle. But good morning. And noting as well the education that you've had. And as I said earlier, it doesn't matter whether people have literally dropped out of high school, done university or not. It's actually the quality of one's opinions and the ability to defend them, which is important. Not whether you've got a degree, as John says, from Victoria Uni. I mean, honestly. Anyway, so... oh yes, good comment here from David, who said, who said that the opinions of thousands of people are of no importance if they know nothing about the subject under discussion? Yeah, I mean, again, he's just basically saying one thing and doing the other. Nutty stuff. Hey, speaking of nutty stuff, I thought this was very telling. This is to do very quickly with Iran. You'll know that the Americans are now blockading Iranian ports, which of course, well, I think this sums it up. And it does show a little bit of that anti-Americanism which exists in some commentators and in some of our media. This is a tweet from someone, noting, of course, as it says, when Iran blocked the strait, the left and others praised them and called it a very powerful strategy. And I remember reading various articles, oh yes, smart move by the Islamic regime. Now that the Americans are doing, oh dear, no, we have to talk about international laws and so forth. But anyway, I just thought it was an interesting comment, and I think quite accurate. I mean, you've heard me say it before, consistency is one of the most important elements, I think, in reasonable discussion. If we're going to judge, in this case, the Americans or the Israelis to a standard, we should also judge that of the Iranians in this case. And Dennis rightly notes, talking again about media, the ability to listen to other people. I think that's exceptionally important. I often talk about it as humility. You can have strong opinions, strong views. Again, you need to be able to back them up. I used to say to young people, just to sort of provoke them, I don't really care about your feelings. I want to know why you feel them. And I think that's far more powerful, to be able to articulate why you think and feel what you do. But Dennis is also right, you need to be able to listen to other people. That's actually why we need free speech. It allows the ideas to be tested. And I think there has to be a degree of humility, in fact, a strong degree of humility. If you're going to listen to someone, you genuinely need to be listening, to hear what they say. You've also got to be prepared to change, and that can be quite painful at times if you've believed something very, very strongly, and then you hear, if you will, counter arguments, and you go, oh gosh, I was wrong. It takes a big degree of humility to change tack, and I think those are really important, and it's not often practiced, sadly, and I think this will be a whole different line. Social media doesn't help. It just becomes a screaming chamber. Speaking of screaming, of course, we had Cyclone Vaianu recently, and I just want to make a few comments on this because I am a little concerned around how it was treated, but a little hesitance from me as well because, of course, I'm just a spectator. I'm not sitting at the top table looking at everything, but a few points I think important to note. Firstly, we call it Cyclone Vaianu. It's not quite accurate because it's not a cyclone by the time it reaches New Zealand. It's an ex-Cyclone, and I know that's just a small point. It's only in a name, but I think one of the things which bothered me was the coverage around this cyclone, a little bit like around the fuel situation at the moment. Everything is turned into quite an emotive crisis. Everything is really hyped up or overhyped. And look, when it comes to weather, we've certainly been caught before. Obviously, we had the absolute tragedies at the start of the year, which I'm sure is very much in Met Services and the government's mind, an underreaction. And now I suspect we've got that classic pendulum swing. We're now overreacting because, as we know, when this ex-Cyclone reached New Zealand, it did what most ex-Cyclones do in New Zealand, which is as it reaches or gets close to landfall, it moves to the east. I don't know exactly why. But that's what happens. Obviously, those on the East Cape often get hit. That juts out far further. But if you're like me in Auckland, it was a storm like any other. But basically, people, well, they shut down churches. The churches themselves chose to shut down. Terrible overreaction, I'd suggest. Whole events closed down for what really turned out to be wind and rain that was not unusual. But again, you can hear slight hesitance in my voice. Because, it could have been as bad as they predicted. But there is, to me, a sense of overhyping things, and I do worry, quite genuinely, that we're going to have the boy who cries wolf circumstance. This is not the first time we've had these sort of high-level warnings which came to very little. Now, I'm not taking away from those of you in parts of the country that did get hit hard, and I noticed too, like Harrison's asking, did we keep safe? Well, we did, because one, we were indoors most of the day, not all of the day, and secondly, I have to say, the rain yesterday was worse than the rain during the ex-Cyclone. And even as I say, calling it that is wrong. I've lived through a cyclone. I was in Fiji years ago when we were literally hit square on by a cyclone. I can tell you, a most unpleasant experience, and it scales stronger than anything we've had here in New Zealand. That's when you hunker into place. What we had here is not necessary. But I do worry, and I can't help but have some sympathy. This is the Hawke's Bay Mayor refused a state of emergency. Now, look, he was one of the exceptions. A whole lot of others, as I said, they set up a whole lot of, well, I won't go through the list, but states of emergency actually engender a whole lot more power to councils and activities to civil defence, all of which is pretty much unnecessary. So leave it to you guys to ponder what you think. As I say, we need to be prepared. I think that's really important. We do need to heed warnings to a degree, but I am becoming concerned that just about everything is becoming a hyped up crisis. I mean, the panic buying again around this ex-Cyclone was crazy. It's a bit like the panic buying around fuel at the moment. It reminds me, of course, as it will of you guys, that the panic buying around toilet paper. I mean, we even see it when the shops close for a day. We all of a sudden have to go out and buy enormous amounts of supplies. I don't myself completely understand it. And I suppose that's my last point on this. I think we can make up our own minds. I might just use the church closures over the weekend. So as I say, some churches put out messages to say to their congregation, no, don't come into church, which I find an extraordinary thing to do. Churches have even more of a role to play when things are getting tough, but we can make up our own minds. We're not that stupid. If people are worried about the weather or something else happening, we can make that judgment. If I woke up on Sunday morning and felt it was too dangerous to drive, I can make that decision. I don't need governments and others telling me what I can and can't do. So I just think it was a panic that was unnecessary. And I see Food Dogs Trucking put it's fear porn. And I think, unfortunately, we are getting a lot of that these days, which is annoying. Speaking of that, actually, I did have one thing I'll end on. I think it is positive because you know that Family First has been calling that we do need to look at under 16-year-olds and their access to the likes of social media, and that, I would say, extends to pornography. In fact, Family First has been pushing for a lot more verification around the porn side for young people. Chris Luxon, so the Prime Minister, in a bouquet to him, is saying, look, they are looking at how they might crack down on child access to pornography. I think this is a good thing. I know a lot of people get very worried that age verification is digital ID. I can only assure you from my perspective, it is different. And I think actually protecting our young ones is vitally important. The research is exceptionally clear or just how damaging pornography is to people in general, but certainly to young ones. And I've forgotten which the research was, and I apologise for this. But the research showing the sexualisation and the violence in young people towards their teachers now is just growing exponentially, and a lot of it's just linked to young people watching porn. But as I say, digital ID is very different to the likes of age verification. If you don't understand, I see Peter's making a comment about it. If you don't understand the difference, I think you need to go and look at it a lot more, and also understand the government already has so much information on you. That's not an argument for digital ID, but I can't see the problem myself with age verification if it's done right. But like the Free Speech Union, Family First is also saying there has to be some guardrails as well to make sure there isn't an extension. I actually sat down with someone called Sarah McLaughlin recently from a group called FIRE, part of the preeminent free speech group in the United States, and her and I had a little debate around that. In fact, that's the latest podcast if you want to go and hear it. If I can find there we go. So Sarah was fantastic around this. So we're talking around, again, free speech. As you might expect, she's actually coming to New Zealand in about a week's time. Check out the Free Speech Union if you want to find out more about her event. She's going to be in the likes of Tauranga and Auckland, Wellington, Dunedin and Christchurch. She's very much on the no age verification, no checks and balances, let parents and the kids and everyone decide for themselves, because she's worried about a slippery slope. And I can understand that. But at the same time, I personally think, and Family First thinks, that there needs to be more accountability to big tech to ensure that we protect our children, because the harms of social media, the harms of pornography are very, very real in everybody, but particularly for children. And I think we need, as I say, to put some guardrails there. And I keep saying to people, go and look at the podcast I did with Ian Corby, his name was, from the Age Verification Provider Association. I found that very insightful of what technologies are available, and very non-invasive, really, which I thought was pretty good. And for me, again, influences my thinking around age verification versus digital ID. Lots more, obviously, you can read, watch, and listen on Family First, so check out all our programs there. Obviously, Bob and I continue to write prolifically onto Substack, so go and check out all our content there as well. I've been writing a little bit on the whole Middle East situation. It's moving so fast, it's crazy. And if you haven't yet, check out Counterculture. It's our new Family First show. It is significant, I think, these young people talking into the issues of the day, which I just think is brilliant. And then to end where I started, which is we're still doing our 20th anniversary, if you will, celebrations. We'd love your support. Obviously, as you've done a lot on YouTube but elsewhere, look, support our content, subscribe, like, share. And if you're feeling generous, if you have any money left over from filling up the car, I just about had a heart attack the other day filling up we have a diesel vehicle. Yes, it is very expensive. But if you are feeling generous and you have any money left over, you are more than welcome to support our work. But with that, guys, thank you so much. Thanks for all the comments rolling in. It's just lovely to have you here. And did you notice the streaming did not break today? I think, touch wood, we might have found the reasons why. I said the last one I did on Thursday was in Tauranga. But this is the first test since we've been having the problems back in my treehouse here in Auckland. And so far, it didn't break, which I think is amazing. And hopefully we've solved the problem. Guys, see you again on Thursday morning.